So women listening to this who are like, I had this moment of clarity and I still can't get my shit together. You are not a horrible person. It is just part of the process. Keep trying.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons.
But also don't discount that voice.
No, don't discount that voice.
Don't discount it.
That's your inner voice telling you, like when you hear the whisper, it's going to become a roar. But I also, like when I quit, it was finally because I felt doomed and I was terrified that I was going to fuck up my life and fuck up my family's life and my kids, and it was going to be my fault. I mean, I used to sit at work and, hungover, and like my go-to reaction, I'm not sure I meant it, but like was I want to shoot myself. Like that was the thought. And it was on, and I was like, and by the way, 4 years sober, I never hear the words, I want to shoot myself in the head.
Yes. Thank you. I don't drive into trees. I don't want to drive into trees.
Like that thought just doesn't pop into your head. So
I might want to drive other people into trees sometimes.
Oh yeah. And I have crappy days where I'm like, this sucks, but I don't 6 times a day think I want to shoot myself.
Right.
So your book is like a roadmap. I mean, it truly takes people through the process of identifying what's working in your life, identifying what's not. I love that you at the end of each chapter have checklists to really help women work through some of this stuff. So tell me how you decided. I know in the beginning it's start where you are and then you take women through the process, but what was your goal and how did you sort of figure out those steps?
I didn't figure out the steps until I started looking at my life, like where did I come from? Because it wasn't like along the way, like I'm going to do these steps. But when I looked back on like my journaling and on like how far I had come, because this journey really dates back 10 years. Like I was in 2010, I was about 250 pounds overweight and I had 2 kids under 2 and I was a practicing attorney. And it started there with moving my body. Like I went to a gym, I started doing triathlon. I was still 220 pounds. Like and I'm to this day sitting here, I'm 191. So I'm still not, I didn't like get thin and everything was great. And my life is amazing. Like that never happened. Not part of the story. But I did start with moving my body and I made a ton of progress. I made all these changes. I was very full of myself. I thought I had solved it all, but I was still a raging drunk. I was very full of myself. I mean, ego is part of my problem. Like I'm very like, that is one of my deadly sins for sure is ego. But I was very full of myself. I at least admit it and own it now, but I didn't own it then. And I was very full of myself and I thought I had just figured so much out, but I was still drinking, and I was still, and even now, 4.5 years sober, I realized that sometimes in a lot of the past several years, I've just been a dry drunk. So all of that is like, I quit drinking and you think that's going to solve your life. You really do, because that is the biggest bleeder and you should absolutely quit drinking because it will stop the bleed. But it's just the beginning. And so when I
the
look
concept
back,
of a dry drunk, I know that concept, but for anyone listening who hasn't heard that, tell me what you mean by that.
So someone called me a dry drunk online a couple years ago and I looked it up and I got really pissed off because it basically means you just quit drinking, but you're still a shitty person. Like that's the summary. You've not dealt with any of the stuff that made you drink in the first place. And I got really offended. I wrote a blog post about why that person was an asshole and I went on about my life. Well, ring in like a few years ago and most recently 2 months ago, I realized, oh yeah, I totally was a dry drunk. That sucks because I had not dealt with the childhood stuff. I had not dealt with my trauma. I had not dealt with the wounds that kept me, okay, sure, I don't drink, but I still bite my nails and I still go to the kitchen sometimes and think, you know what, I could just start cutting myself. And I think of like, I have this thought loop that addicts have. And that is what I've come back to is like, oh, I'm an addict. I really should have worked the 12 steps. I should have gone to AA. Like, oh, this is all news. But when I look back on the process, like how did I come to the Year of No Nonsense? How did I come to this process? It's because I had to learn from my mistakes. I had to learn at the process that took me to the point where I started writing the Year of No Nonsense in 2018, 2019. and now it's out. But now I've changed even more. And I'm like, I have another book. I have another idea. Because this concept of drive drunk is when you don't establish, or when you don't recognize what's causing you to drink in the first place, and you don't make peace, work through your trauma, your history, all of it, you can't actually be fully sober. You're not emotionally sober. You're just dry. You're still a drunk, and you're still, having these bad behaviors that cause you pain. And so actually coming up with the Year of No Nonsense process was about me looking at how I got to the point I did when I wrote the book. And I had come very, very far. Like, if you knew me in college, like when I was 22, I was a mess, like just a mess. Like, I would drink so much and smoking cigarettes and getting in fights with people and eating 2 Whoppers, a large fry, and, cheese sticks, and like just horrible, disgusting habits. And so when you pair that next to, oh, here's Meredith Atwood, the Ironman. Yeah, I had done great, but I still had further to go because I was not dealing with the emotional stuff behind it. And so the Year of No Nonsense is really a roadmap for taking this sobriety journey, whether or not you're a drinker. Because I promise you, as a human, whether you drink or not, you have some really bad habits and you have some stuff that is standing in your way. And so that's why the term addict gets a bad rap, because people are like, well, I don't drink or do drugs. No, but you cheat on your husband and you shop all day long. You got your stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I promise you,
everyone has their stuff, right?
Everyone has their stuff.
And one of the reasons that I love that you talk about peeling back the truth onion. I talk about it like uncovering the layers, because the reason we start drinking is it works for a while, right?
Yep.
It is a maladaptive coping strategy, but it is a coping strategy. It does numb us out. It does shut off our mind. It does take down our inhibitions. And then once you stop drinking, because invariably, if you drink enough, it doesn't work for you, right? We know that.
Right.
And it is addictive, and it'll take you down a path. But there's all the things underneath that is the reason that drinking appealed to you so much in the first place. So you do like, peeling back the layers, the onions, getting to the heart of it. Like, once you stop that behavior, you need to do that work.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always going to be there too. And I think that is an interesting and very true statement. Just because you quit drinking and you're many years sober, the vigilance that it requires to get through every day will shift, but it's always there. I mean, it's always the desire to cope, to numb out with whatever mechanism you can. And it's not until you start to turn the blame and the identification of the problems inward, and you understand that happiness, which is a loaded term, but you understand that your happiness and your health and all of this comes from you and not from people around you, not from your job, not from anything external. Can you develop the resolve to be able to withstand the desire to numb out? And then you can start to create the life you want. And then you don't want to numb out. You get a better job, and you like the person you're living with, and everything gets better.